Hey, CEO, that's what I've redefined as a Christ-empowered operator of a with God life and business. Welcome back to the Unlock Launch Success Summit. Hasn't this summit been life, business, and faith shaping so far? I pray that you feel empowered with both biblical truth and practical tools to launch your thing with confidence, faith, and integrity. On this training, you'll understand how time is a business owner's most valuable asset and why, as a CEO, this is the number one thing that you need to address to increase your ROI in both impact and income. Because you see, too many business owners are out there running a busyness instead of a business. That's because they think the answer is found in going more and doing more and chasing more, right? Running after clocks and calendars and checklists. But I'm here to tell you that approach to time actually puts a cap on your ROI. This session is going to help you shift everything about how you approach time and take the lid off the ROI on your time for the glory of God. I'm Lissa Figgins, time management strategist, CEO of Redeem Her Time Coaching, host of the Redeem Her Time podcast, and creator of the Redeem Her Time Planner. And I help go-getter Christian women business owners just like you to shift how you approach time. So that way you can increase your ROI in less time with God. I'm here to help you invest your time where it matters so you move the needle and no longer just have a busyness. That way, you have both the time and resources to truly make kingdom impact. Because who doesn't want that, right? But I want to let you know, I get where you are because I'm a recovering busyness owner too. You see, I was the poster child for busy and time management, and I thought I had it all under control. I was multitasking to the max, always making the most of every minute of my day, keeping everything super organized and under control, or so I thought. The problem was I was working really hard, but I wasn't really seeing the results in my business. I had a busyness. A busyness is one where your calendar is full and you're checking a lot of boxes and you feel like you're being productive. But when you look at your bank account, you're not quite seeing the results you're praying for. Can you relate? Actually, I was producing something in my busyness, a lot of guilt. When I was working on my business, I felt guilty that I should be with my family. When I was with my family, I felt guilty about what I should be doing in my business. I was present in body, but I wasn't very present. I was even bringing, get this, my own screened family movie night. Have you been there too? And I was also producing a response in my body. I always had this knot in my stomach, this tension in my neck and shoulders, and a ball in my throat. But of course, I ignored it because who has time to do anything about those kinds of things when you have lots of boxes to check? That is, until I realized that ball had been in my throat for over a year. And I wondered if something was growing in there and that might really cost me some time. So I promised my besties I would get it checked out. I went to a specialist who tried medication and dietary changes to no avail, and then finally did a scope. And I vividly remember walking into his office for that follow-up appointment when he sat me down and said, Lissa, I have put a camera down your throat and there's no ball there. In fact, there's no physical reason why you should feel like you have a ball in your throat. You have, and then he said, hystericus globus. And he sat there with a smirk on his face. I was like, what's hystericus globus? He says globus, globe, like a ball, and hystericus, and he twirled his finger next to his head like I was crazy. He said, this is where they get the word hysterectomy from, because they thought women were going crazy in midlife. You, Lissa, have anxiety. It's all in your head, but I'm happy to give you a pill. Now, I'm not against medication at all, but it was in that moment that I knew a pill might make me feel better on the outside, but it wasn't going to fix the real problem. That's because it wasn't really a throat problem. It was a heart problem. You see, I had time anxiety and I was always chasing my not enoughness. My time wasn't enough. I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't enough. Do you see the natural progression? If I kept always doing and chasing after my worth found in my accomplishing of tasks and checking the boxes, I was going to remain a shell of a person who was not fully present to anything, to my business, to my family, to myself, to God. And that is when God got my attention. and started to show me that my busyness was not a disordered calendar. It was a disordered heart. Now, I wish I could say everything changed in an instant. It didn't, but everything did change in that moment. And since then, the more I ask Christian women, business owners like you, the question, how's life? Do you know what answer I hear most often? Some form of busy. Oh, busy, 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 just staying busy, always busy, like it's this badge of honor, right? But we would have a pasted on smile and a faraway look in our eyes. And I know it's not true. We're not really fulfilled. And that's how God led me to working with women like you around their time. Because I have yet to meet a woman on the planet who never says some form of, there's never enough time, right? If I had time, when I have time, if only I had time, when the kids grow up or this launch is over or we get through the holidays, then I'll have time. Except we still get the same 24 hours in a day ever since Genesis 1. And time keeps ticking. So if time never changes, how do we change? How do we rightly order our heart and then rightly order our calendar so that way we can live the lives and love the families and build the businesses that God has entrusted to us without going crazy? I'm so glad you asked. It all starts with understanding how time affects everything about our ROI, especially in business, and then making 3 key shifts in how we approach it, and finally implementing the 4 CEO essentials. So, are you ready to dive in? Good, me too. All right, how does time affect everything about our ROI, especially as Christian business owners? Well, I'm really glad you asked because time is the great equalizer, right? We all get the same 24 hours in a day, but how we approach and invest it is the greatest differentiator. And where you are today in any area of your life or business is the consequence, good, bad, or indifferent, of how you've spent your time up till now. That's because how you spend your time affects where you end up and who you become, right? And this is why we need to do what most people don't or won't. What is it? Push pause on our busyness long enough to look at our time and the ROI on it. And this is especially true for those of us who are business owners, because I don't know about you, but we certainly don't have time to waste with a busyness, right? So we talked about what a busyness is, something that's producing mostly busyness, right? But you may be wondering, Lisa, what is a true business? Well, a true business with an I is one that is growing the 2 I's. You ready for them? Impact and income. True? Any Fortune 500 CEO is for sure going to be looking at their ROI, right? What are they producing in these 2 areas of impact and income? And what are they going to do? They are going to make changes in what they're doing to increase their ROI. And that, my friend, is exactly what you should be doing as a CEO, as a Christ-empowered operator who is building a business with God, with Him as the chairman of the board. So let me ask, do you have a busyness or a business? It all comes down to how you approach and invest your time. Because time is money, but not the way the world defines it, where you have to do more to have more, or go big or go home and hustle and grind to make it to the top. Time is your most precious resource. It's the currency with which you give value in both life and business. And here's the thing, with God, there is always an abundant ROI, right? So as believers in business, we should be rocking things, but oh, how we get distracted. It's interesting to look at the history of time and see that although we still have the same 24 hours in a day that Adam and Eve had back in the garden, it feels like we have less time. Perhaps that's because the enemy knows if he can keep us busy and distracted, we're of no threat to him and no use to the kingdom. We're just over here checking boxes, scrolling feeds, not really having much to show for it, right? It used to be that the way we looked to time was the way that God created things to tell us when to work and when to rest. That is, until we started putting clocks in our public squares and light bulbs in our homes and smartphones in our hand. Speaking of which, it's probably within arm's reach, right? Did you know the average person touches, get this, touches their phone 2,617 times a day, which adds up to 4 hours and 37 minutes of time going to our device each day. Now, I did the math. And over a year, that totals, are you ready for this? 70 days of your life going to this extra appendage that you carry around all day. And we say we don't have time. I'd say the problem is not that we don't have time, but that our heart is disordered and we're giving our time away to lesser things. Wouldn't you agree? That's because we spend all day long reacting to all the shuns, expectations, what we think we should, others think we should be doing, obligations, what we think we should be doing, interruptions, what intersects what we were doing, and distractions, right? A lot of them over here. No wonder there's never enough time and we always feel busy. But again, busyness is not a disordered calendar. If it was, then picking up that cute planner at Target and stacking your time blocks inside would fix everything about your time for all time, right? But it doesn't. That's because busyness is really a disordered heart. And no matter how much we wish for an extra hour a day, which we only get once a year for daylight savings, and even then it doesn't change things for very long, right? The solution to our time issues is not more time. It is shifting our perspective on time. Redeem Her Time is actually founded on Ephesians 5:15 through 16, which says, look carefully how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, redeeming the time, because I love this version, these are difficult days. Amen to some difficult days, right? But did you notice the intention required around our choices and the consequences on our ROI if we're not paying attention? If we're giving our time away to anything or anyone that demands it? Wow. So now that we know how time is the problem we need to address, and it's really a heart issue, what are the 3 shifts that we need to make around our time? Girl, you ask good questions. We need to shift our belief, our role, and our question. Okay, first, you need to shift your belief around time. How many of us go around saying, I don't have time, or one of those versions I shared earlier? I would say 99.999% of us, myself included. You see, the problem is it's simply not true. We do have time. God faithfully lays 24 hours in front of us each and every day, just like he laid manna in front of the children of Israel. And did you know when Jesus taught his disciples to pray in Matthew 6, give us this day our daily bread, that literally means give us today what we need for today. So a few months back, my pastor was preaching through the Sermon on the Mount, and he pointed out, we're not wondering where our bread will come from each day, right? We're saying, how can I stay away from it? And then he asked this question, what is your daily bread? What is it that you are dependent on God for each and every day? And immediately I thought of time. You see, just like the Israelites and manna, I can't make time on my own. I can't save it up from yesterday or borrow from tomorrow. I have to trust that what God lays in front of me each morning is enough. And we know that God doesn't do anything just barely enough, right? He is the exceedingly abundantly beyond all I could ask or imagine. To him be the glory kind of God, right? That's why Jesus also taught his disciples and you and me to not worry about tomorrow, like the world running around chasing these things. Why? Because our Heavenly Father knows what we need. Amen, right? That's why we are called to seek him first, the one who not only gives us our time, but everything else we need for what he's called us to. So when you have that thought creep in that you don't have time, because be honest, it's probably not just a one-time thought. It's on repeat and you start to believe it, and then it steers your emotions, your execution, and your results. I want to challenge you to take that thought captive to the obedience of Christ and steer it based on God's truth. Here's a great passage I'd love to come back to when I'm feeling like I have a lack of time. 2 Corinthians 9:8, which says, and God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. Yes, and then he goes on in verse 11, he will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase your harvest so that not it'll make you look good or feel good, so it will produce thanksgiving to God. Notice the ROI is his glory. Talk about having all the time we need and producing an abundant ROI. That is why I've created a tool called the Steer Belief Map that helps you take those thoughts captive, the ones the enemy wants you to believe because it makes you hold back in fear of not having enough or try to overcompensate by doing too much. and shift your belief from I don't have time to I have time. In fact, my clients tell me they often hear my voice in their head saying, you have time, as it's true. Okay, next, you need to shift your role around time. We've been told by the experts the answer to more time is better time management, right? So, how many of us have said, I need to get better at managing my time, or I just need to get more organized? So, we line up all our time blocks, our task lists, our timekeepers. But what happens over time? That order goes to disorder pretty quickly. If that's you, no worries. It's not your fault because that is simply the law of entropy. You see, time management is actually not the solution. I believe it's the problem. It is what is actually putting a cap on our ROI. Time management is a myth, or better yet, an illusion. Because who can realistically get everything all in order, right, and keep it there longer than like 30 seconds before something jumps up out of line or knocks things out of place, and then you're running around playing an endless game of whack-a-mole that you can never win, right? Trying to manage time is exhausting and fruitless. So permission to stop managing time. Phew. In fact, do you know what managing actually means? The English teacher in me looked it up. So manage is a verb that means to be in charge of, to exert control over, or keep contained. Think about the manager at a fast food restaurant. They're a little harried and hurried, running around in the back, trying to keep everyone and everything in line, right? Managing is very hands-on and top-down, trying to keep it all under your control before it gets away from you. Now, are you familiar with the parable of the talent? In this story, Jesus told in Matthew 25, a master gave talents, aka resources, to 3 servants. One servant got 1 talent, one got 2 talents, and the other one got 5 talents. Now, lest you think that poor servant who got 1 got nothing, a talent is 20 years' wages. So he was also given in abundance. But the difference was not how much they were given, it was their response. How did the servant who was given the 1 talent respond? Out of fear, right? Fear that it would get away, fear that the master would be angry. You see, he saw what he had been given as a limited resource that he had to manage, aka bury, and his goal was to keep it from getting away. Now, we don't hear the master's instructions, but when he returned, we understand what he meant for them to do in his response. Because what did he do? He took it away from that servant and told him to go away. But what about the other 2 servants? They responded differently. They responded in faith, faith that it would grow and faith that the master would be pleased. You see, they saw what they had been given as this abundant gift that had been entrusted to them to do something with, so they invested it as stewards. Their goal was to produce an ROI, and they did, both of them twofold. And what was the master's response? Well done, good and faithful servant. He entrusted them with more and told them, come near. Do you see how stewarding is way different than managing? The definition of steward is to oversee the well-being and expansion of assets that are entrusted into one's care according to the intention of the owner, aka to build his kingdom. And isn't that why God has entrusted us time, treasures, and talents? To expand his kingdom through how we invest them in the context of our life and business? You see, you and I, we only have 2 choices, the same 2 choices when it comes to our time. We can choose fear or we can choose faith. We can choose to be a manager or we can choose to be a steward. We can choose to keep it under control or we can choose to expand the ROI. And that, my friend, is why, as a Christ-empowered operator of the life and business that God has entrusted us, we need to shift our role from being a manager to a steward. And here's the amazing thing about stewarding. It removes the stress. It reduces the overwhelm and it restores the joy because it's not all on us and it's not all about us and it's not all for us. Okay, are you ready for the 3rd shift? You need to shift your question around time. Do you know what the question most women ask in their day around time, whether looking at the clock on their wrist, on their phone, on their computer, on their wall? It's, what time is it? And what kind of response does that question typically elicit? What time is it? I'm behind. Where did the time go? I should have left by now. That took longer than I realized, right? It puts us back in fear mode around what we think we lack and this gap that we have to make up for. So we're scattered and random and hurried and multitasking, barking orders and looking for an easy box to check to feel better about ourselves. Can you relate? We fall right into a managing mode. If only I'd been better at managing my time. If only I was more organized. If only I wasn't so distracted. If only this person didn't interrupt me. We get caught up in the shoulda, woulda, couldas. But that's not going to have much of an ROI, is it? And chances are, it's not just a once in a while. It happens day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And then we've all but given up hope on even trying. Or we're trying too hard. That was me. So let's not waste another minute asking the wrong question. Are you ready for the right one? I want you to lean in because it is so similar. The difference is nearly imperceptible, except it makes all the difference. And here's the question. What is it time for? Can you see and feel the difference? What time is it? And what is it time for? I can already feel the tension leaving my shoulders. What about you? And here's what's different about this question. It presupposes two things. Number one, that you do have time. And number two, that there's a purpose behind that time. It reminds me of Ecclesiastes 3:1 that talks about for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. So what difference do you think it would make to ask that question instead and pay attention to the answer? What is it time for? I guarantee it would make you more focused and present, and you ditch the lie that multitasking is your superpower. You know, like jumping from making dinner to helping your daughter with her math homework, to texting back your client, to answering the question your hubby just asked. Girl, multitasking is not your superpower. It's your kryptonite. Why? Because it weakens your focus, because no one and nothing gets enough of you to even make a difference. And here's the thing about multitasking. Studies actually show that it makes tasks, get this, take up to 50% longer, and you will make up to 40% more mistakes. Talk about wasting time and not a good ROI. So pay attention to what question you're asking and the answer that's right in front of you. Because a CEO is someone who believes her time is a gift from God, that it's been entrusted to her to steward, and that she knows what it's time for. So now that we've shifted your belief around time, your role around time, and your question about time, what tools does the CEO put in place to redeem her time and increase her ROI in less time for the glory of God? Again, good question. A CEO knows that the 4 CEO essentials are not nice to haves, but must haves, because her time is not her own. And she doesn't have time to waste. And she's not in business to check boxes and not grow her impact and income, because God has bigger things for her and for you, right? Do you want to be that kind of CEO? I thought so. That means you are going to want to avoid these 4 common mistakes that many business owners make, and instead implement the 4 CEO essentials as your time strategy. So here are the 4 common CEO mistakes. Mistake number 1, lack of slowing down in order to speed up. When you jump into the day and into your task list or inbox or DMs, you're giving your time to a lot of random things, acting like it's all on you and how much you can squeeze into the day. But let's be honest, it's exhausting and not very fruitful, right? Mistake number 2 is a lack of boundaries around your work time. When you're working all the time, letting business take over life, or you're always starting and stopping because you're letting life take over business, no wonder you don't see results, or at least consistent results, because there's not time for anything to get your best time and attention to really grow and scale, right? Mistake number 3 is a lack of clarity when you do sit down to work. Because when you don't know exactly what you need to do each day, here's the thing. You are going to waste time trying to figure out where you last left off, or you're going to jump from one should do to another, hoping that something makes things take off. But randomness doesn't work, right? And then mistake number 4 is a lack of a plan and the time to work on your business. You see, when you spend most of your time working in your business, on the admin tasks and the fires that come up each day, you're not spending time working on your business, the things that are actually going to grow and scale your impact and income. Girl, these 4 mistakes only lead to building a busyness, one that is not producing much impact and income, or is producing way less than it could be, which is why you need the 4 CEO essentials in place. Okay, are you ready for these? These are going to change everything about your time and your ROI. Here they are: CEO daily meeting, CEO time blocks, CEO workflows, and CEO growth plans. So I'm going to give you a quick overview so you can see how they all fit together. And then I'm going to show you how a well-known CEO that is set before us as an example, running successful businesses, has all four CEO essentials in place. Okay, first is your daily CEO meeting. Now, if you are truly a CEO, a Christ-empowered operator, you don't just jump into your day and start responding to all the demands and requests on your plate, filling all the roles and responsibilities that come your way. What do? You first take time to meet with the chairman of the board, aka God, and listen to his wisdom and his direction and gain his discernment about where to focus, what to let go of, and what to trust to him. And then what he's calling you to do today with him. No matter how many to-dos on your list, the answer is not jumping into get her done mode as fast as possible, but in slowing down to seek first his dominion and his way of doing, as Jesus teaches us in Matthew 6:33. And that is why I give my CEOs a template for what that daily meeting could look like to focus your heart and your attention, leading towards an ROI, girl, that is both in the here and now and goes into eternity. Second are your CEO time blocks. Now, if you had a local shop, you would not be working there 24/7, right? You would post a sign with your business hours so that way you and others know when you're working and when you're not. And when you're working, you wouldn't be driving across town to respond to every whim your family has. And when work is done, what would you do? You'd lock the door and leave it behind. So, think you have to do it all at the same time because otherwise you'd have no time? Maybe that's why your ROI in your relationships and your business are not what you're praying for, because you don't know what it's time for. And that is why I help my CEOs create their ideal week template. So that way they know there is time for everything that matters. And they start to see the ROI in the growth and balance of all 8 areas of attention. Third are those CEO workflows. When you sit down to work each day, each week, each month, each quarter, do you know exactly what to do? Or are you doing random things at random times for random reasons and wondering why you get random results? I believe 90% of the tasks that need to happen in your business are on repeat. So why are you reinventing the wheel and wasting time starting over or trying to remember what you did last time or picking up the balls that you dropped? Oops. A company that produces a product sets up an assembly line that nearly runs on its own, right? And that's what you need to do with all the tasks that fill your to-do list. Guaranteed. It will save you time and you'll get more done in less time, which is why I help my CEOs build out their workflows. So all they have to do is tip the first domino when it's time for that series of tasks, because they know when it needs their time and attention, and they start seeing a better ROI that compounds. And then fourth are your CEO growth plans, because too many busyness owners spend too much time working in their business, doing the daily tasks, checking all those inboxes, responding to all the comments and likes and messages and putting out fires and searching the internet for the secrets that just might be the secret sauce you're missing. Do you spend most of your time working in your business? Strategic CEOs know that in order to grow, you need to focus time working on your business, regularly giving time to the projects that are going to help you grow and scale. I can't tell you how many CEOs tell me they spend way more time working on what their clients need to grow over what they need to grow. And that is why I help my CEOs map out their growth plans, so they not only know where to focus to grow and scale over a year, but where to focus in each season, each month, each week, and each day to get more done in 12 weeks than most people get done in 12 months. And I can tell you from personal experience that the Redeem Her Time Planner that I am just now launching into the world would not be here if I had not used these CEO essentials: the CEO growth plans, the CEO workflows, the CEO time blocks, and most importantly, the CEO daily meetings. Do you see why I call them the 4 CEO essentials? Because they are must-haves if you want to grow your ROI in less time. Not nice-to-haves, they're must-haves. That is, unless you have time, resources, and energy just to waste. I don't know about you, but that is not me. So, who is the example set before us as Christian women who has all 4 CE essentials and is growing in her impact and income? It's the Proverbs 31 woman. Did you know? She has CEO time blocks because she knows when it's time to serve at home and when it's time to trade with the ships and when it's time to sell on the merchants and when it's time to go to the leaders in the square. And she has CEO workflows because she follows a process in how she considers a field and buys it and plants it and then invests her profit and then starts over again. And she has CEO growth plans because she's thinking about the future and she's spending time now preparing for the time to come. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? How does she get it all done? And let's be honest, is she even real? Have you ever wondered if this woman is so busy, how she can be present with her family? Well, if you read what it says about her, I'm just going to say her children and husband would not be going out of their way to speak highly of her if she was the too busy to care kind of woman running around frazzled and barking orders at those around her, like we often do, right? But she's not. And it says in Proverbs 31:31, let her fruit praise her at the gates. In other words, her ROI speaks for itself. So here's the real question. How does she do it? Because yes, she's got all four CEO essentials in place, including the first one that matters most. Proverbs 31:30 shows us exactly how she does this, which says, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. So it's not about her just being organized on the outside, right? But a woman who fears, aka honors the Lord, is to be praised. That means she is regularly meeting with her chairman of the board. She is building a life and business with God and has all four CEO essentials in place. And guess what? You can too. So now you know how to increase your ROI. So when you launch your thing with God, it brings an abundant result. First, you need to recognize the impact your time has on your current ROI. And the problem is not a disordered calendar that's going to be found in getting that organized, but really in a disordered heart that needs to be focused on what matters most. Second, you learned about the three shifts that you need to make around your time: what you believe about your time, what role you play with your time, and what questions you ask about your time. And then last, you learned to put the four CEO essentials in place if you want to be that kind of CEO who grows your impact and income in less time for his glory. So I know what you're thinking right now. Okay, Lissa, what is my next step if I want to be that kind of CEO? If I want to be a Christ empowered operator who is increasing her income and her impact for God's glory? Well, here it is. Decide that thinking about your time and your ROI is important to you. And that is why I am gifting you the Redeem Her Time assessment, where you can pause the busyness to look at your time and your ROI in the 8 key areas. So you can grab your free resource at redeemhertime.com/assessment. And for those of you who want to head into a new year with intention around your time and go from those big vision dreams to what do I do today, be sure to check out the Redeem Her Time Planner and the digital course that I just launched into the world at redeemhertime.com/planner. Girl, I believe you are a CEO. You have time and you are capable of abundant results with God. The question is, do you? I can't wait to support you as you launch your thing and be a good steward of the time that God has given you.